is China really as stable as we thought it was? And the harder they push down, the more unstable it becomes. The Chinese government has had this attitude that economic growth solves all problems, and we're finding out now that is not the case.
Okay, all right. We move around. We move to the next round of questions.
Okay.
Farhana?
I have two questions, one each for the speaker, but I'll keep it short. My name is Farhana. I'm with YCM analyst. For Hugo, my question is, you mentioned some of the external headwinds that will be facing China. Some are external, coming out of the US and Euro, mainly by virtue of China being, the midway economy, not the end destination. Some are, Chinese specific, and maybe, a result of contractionary policies to sort of slow growth, soft landing, hard landing. The point is, my question is, how much, what portion of the headwinds are of these, as a result of business cycles, and what portion of these headwinds are, will require China to change structurally?
Okay.
Secondly, for Jude, putting yourself in the Communist Party or the government, what are some of the policies of the government and possibly the Communist Party that you would understand? What are some of the things, some of the policies that you do that you say, okay, I would understand why they would do that to maintain status quo and protect the citizens or whatnot?
All right. Okay, thank you, Farhana. We move to the next question.
Hi, my name is Henry. I got two questions as well. My first question is about...
I think it's in the interest of everyone. I think we stick to one question and can be answered by both panelists. That will make it more efficient.
Okay, all right. I'll talk about questions. But I think this Chinese delegate talk about promoting socialism culture during for their 12-year plan. But in order to keep our GDP or economic growth to be higher, China had to be more give more economic freedom to the citizens. My question is, what reforms has to be made to existing institutions and places to allow greater democracy, freedom for the citizens? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question, please.
Hello, Ainul Aizat from Young Corporate Malaysia. Hi, Jude.
A lot of in-house questions, yeah?
Yes. My first question goes to the fact that you were saying that there's a growing perception that the enforcement of trademark and intellectual property regulation that is so weak in China. What is your advice to successfully market our product in China without being copied? Because there's a rumors going around that they copy everything from Mercedes, iPhones to they can even copy bloods these days. Wow. So what is your advice in this matter? Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Rezan with NASA Group. First of all, Jude, thank you for bringing up the human rights issue. I think it's very important, but my question is more business related, I guess, and it goes to either one of you, and it sort of touches on the earlier question. The Chinese economy shift is more domestic now, but at the same time, the SOE investment is also increasing, in resources around the world. My question is more for the wealthy Chinese that are moving their money out of China. What are opportunities for Malaysian SMEs and also corporations to get involved in that? What are the things that the wealthy Chinese on that level, what are they looking for? Okay,
thank you very much. Starting first, I think we'll go from the question on external to you, Hugo, on what portion is the headwinds a business cycle and what portion of it is structural.
Yeah, another very difficult question. Well, I would say that the biggest problems that China faces are structural, and the precipitating factors are cyclical. So, what we're going to see in the next few years, and I didn't mention actually, is the growth of non-performing loans in the banking system as a result of all that money that was pushed out the door in a very short period of time. And so when that hits, I think it's basically accepted even by people who are very bullish on the Chinese economy that there will probably have to be another round of bank bailouts. So yeah, I think that makes it pretty clear that it's a large structural problem.
Okay. All right, thank you, Hugo. Jude, the question on policies you would understand the Communist Party that you can identify with.
I mean, I can understand all of them, and I think this is one of the difficulties about ensconcing yourself with all of this power and trying to maintain control is you don't want to give it up. And the other thing is, they're not wrong to not want to give it up from a strategic standpoint. When you look at the social science literature on why regimes collapse, one of the things you find is that initial attempts at liberalization to placate the opposition don't often work, because if you liberalize, it's not that then solves the problems people were worried about. What it then creates space for is people to complain about additional problems, and it just begins to snowball. So I completely understand why the Chinese government, for example, is locking up people who are tweeting about the Jasmine Revolution, or why they deal with an iron fist on any sort of indication of dissent or people dissenting from the party itself. And this is the sort of sick, twisted logic of power. So while we work with groups in China who are advocating rule of law, independent judiciary, increasing elections from the local level on up, I'm not very hopeful, because the Chinese government is going to have to find an escape route for themselves. You can think of the Chinese government, or the Chinese economy, even as a family business, which was a good analogy used in a book called Red Capitalism, where you've got 300 or so powerful families, all connected to the government. Some of them, like Bo Xilai, his son now, Bo Guagua, is studying at Harvard Kennedy School.
He was at Oxford before.
He was at Oxford before. This is a regime which is intricately tied with the state and with these ruling elite. What's your exit plan out of that? And one of the reasons that people say corruption has gotten bad in recent years is because they're not sure how long the party's going to go on. And so you grab what you can now, because you're not sure what's going to happen in 10 years or so, which ironically may have the outcome of further incentivizing dissent and disruption. So I can completely empathize with the Communist Party, and I can see why they don't want to have the rule of law and independent judiciary, because there's a feeling that, well, when you insert that, when you get that into the equation, then it's just a matter of time before the whole thing falls down.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Hugo? On economic freedom? Oh, so it's not working.
Going on to one of the other questions leads into that is, how can Malaysia benefit from those people leaving? Wealth management products, allowing people to, gain residency through investment. I mean, I think the U.S. is now pulling in quite big sums of money from Chinese who want to get a, residency. So, there's that aspect of it. These people, they want to be able to send their children to somewhere that's stable and where there'll be some opportunities for them. So if Malaysia can create that environment, it might pick up some relatively talented people who have seed capital who could start businesses.
The last question from the last round on your advice on intellectual property regulation in China.
I mean, that's a legal question. I know that people who deal with intellectual property issues say, register your intellectual property in China. That throwing up your hands and saying the system is broke isn't an answer. Register it and then go after it aggressively. My next door neighbor came to visit me in Beijing. He works for a company called NRG, which makes the little boxes on wind towers. There's a big push for green energy in China. So these wind towers measure how much juice is coming in and out. So he was working with one of their local partners in China who's producing this box. Buying the box. And then one day they stopped getting orders from the company. So they sent someone over to Beijing to ask why. And they found out because this company, instead of buying it from NRG in Vermont in the US, just decided they'll just copy it. So now what they've had to do, NRG, this company, is they open up an office in Beijing where they have a handful of lawyers who spend every waking hour of the working day tracking down counterfeits and bringing cases to the Chinese government. And while there's just the reputation of zero enforcement of intellectual property rights, it's not true. It is getting better. There's the cliche of the DVDs that you get on the street and whatnot. And that's rampant. But it is getting better. You have to register your intellectual property rights, and you have to go after it aggressively through the legal system. It's not going to work with the efficacy and the efficiency that you're going to find in a developed market, but it's sort of the best that you can do.
Okay, all right. Now we're going to go to our last round of questions, okay? So for those who, I'm just going to take 4, can't make it, you can still speak to our panelists outside later after this session. Okay, let's start with the gentleman, red.
Morning, panel speakers. I'm Malaysian, okay? Mr. Hugo, forgive me to say that you don't understand young Chinese mind. Even though you stay in China, Hong Kong for 15 years, you are the editors of Wall Street Journal, and I've been reading the Wall Street Journal for the past 20 years. Western media always criticize about Chinese, written a lot of books on Chinese going to rank bankrupts, but yet all these things don't happen and not going to happen soon. Okay, my question is that today we focus on China and India, and you are here to talk bad about China. Like Chinese President Jiang Zemin said, do not talk about human rights when you deal with China. Okay, because China is still a developing country. But you are here to talk about Chinese, and
the question is, please.
It only helps young Malaysians to go to China to do business. Okay, because we heard about this thing, we will pull out. Okay, what is your view? I think you should talk something good about China, please. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Next question, please.
Sir, my name is Ashik. I'm from Swinburne University, Australia. My question is, Obama administration just approved a law from the House of Senate for indefinite detention without trial. These loopholes allows them to marginalize OIC countries in terms of import and export. So my question is, do you think OIC nations should shift from US investment to Chinese investment? Because we do understand when China comes into your country as investment, they don't come in for any other reason without only making money. And when this Western investment comes in, it's more about neo-colonization of your system rather than making money out of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Shawal?
Hi, my name is Shawal Hafiz. I'm from London School of Economics. So my question is, given such international demand for China's currency and also its potential to appreciate further, and at the same time the weakening value of euros as a result of the European debt crisis, will yuan become more internationalized in these coming years? What's your take on it? Thank you.
All right, the last question.
Hi, good day for the speakers. My name is Wei Lun. My question is short, just that we know that China is having the one-child policy, right? So we believe that it resulted in an aging populace in China. So what do you think that it will impact in the China economy, and also how the China government will cope with it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with the one-child policy question first.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's obviously having it is starting to have an impact on the country, and it's something that Chinese leaders are well aware of. I'm going to make up the numbers. I think it's the ratio now, maybe you know, 100 males to, 120 males to 100 females, I think is roughly the ratio now, which is causing a severe imbalance. There's also a demographic issue of an age imbalance now too, where you have a rapidly aging population. So there has been a significant reevaluation of the one-child policy again at the intellectual level right now in the journals and newspapers. So I think there is going to be a significant change because the effect of that is not over the horizon. It's here now, and you see sort of research come out now, economic research on how this idea that one has to, this competitive race to find one of the few females out there is changing consumption patterns for men. This is the drive now to have a house, to have a car, which is consuming young Chinese males. So it is really affecting society. So I think it's something that's going to have to be dealt with soon.
Okay, all right. Hugo, on the perception that when the Westerners go into China, it's about neo-colonization, and the Chinese going everywhere else is about making money. What's your comment on that?
Well, I guess one field for this debate would be Africa, and you know, there's a certain amount of criticism of Chinese companies in Africa that they're becoming neo-colonialists, but I don't actually believe that. I think to some extent the government is trying to gather up, you know, access to resources, but I think it's probably healthy for Africa that Chinese are concentrating on making money. You know, the West's, perhaps out of guilt, a sense of guilt over colonialism, has tended to try to impose conditions and given a lot of aid, which has created a dependency. And what Africa probably needs more is just straight business investment. And if they don't create the right environment for that investment, I think the Chinese are going to face some problems in Africa. You know, they're newcomers, and you know, in some of these countries, as they get bigger, some of their projects will start to be nationalized, as has happened to the West. So, I mean, I don't really see it as you know, trying to impose a system so much as you know, when you come into these countries, you're trying to protect your investments, and the Chinese government will probably get involved in trying to pressure governments to protect its enterprises, and that will be called neocolonial, a major international currency for some time. I think there's been a lot of hype. You know, the bankers have hyped these yuan products because that's the new flavor of the month. But it's basically due to a couple of circumstances. One, liquidity being tight within China, so Chinese companies wanted to come to Hong Kong, and they were happy to raise you know, money through yuan-denominated bonds. And the other being that you know, there was just this expectation that yuan would rise, so people were happy to hold those bonds because they would make it some extra return from the yuan rising. So you take away these two special circumstances, and I don't think people are that interested in holding the yuan when it's not fully convertible.
All right. Before I conclude, let's end this as suggested by the gentleman just now on a very positive note on China. Please give us a 1 minute closing on why young Malaysians, young corporate Malaysians should go to China, why China is the next place that we should venture into. 1 minute, please, gentlemen.
Well, I deny the legitimacy of the statement by the gentleman, because you're conflating comments. I read the Wall Street Journal, and things I've saying is criticisms of the Chinese government as criticisms of the Chinese, which I hope you see the distinction. And I don't think I've ever read an article in the Wall Street Journal that has said something negative about the Chinese people. And I hereby represent all of America and give you the right to say anything bad you want about the American government at any time you ever want. So, and I will not in the least be offended as an American when you say that Guantanamo is hideous, when you say that any sort of violations of human rights are desecration of the United States Constitution. I will not be offended in the least. So more power to you. Say whatever you want about Obama, George Bush, but I reserve the right to say the same thing about the Chinese leadership. I know people who have been to jail and who have disappeared in China. I know Hugo knows people, right? So that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the Chinese people.
Okay,
so
right.
I'm not going to say anything nice because I don't feel like I should have to submit to a demand to say something nice. I've lived in China for 6 years. You can ask anyone who knows me. You can ask my Chinese friends if you doubt sort of my love of the country.
Okay, Jude, that's your minute up. Hugo, all right, 1 minute, please.
Well, you know, I think the positive aspects of what's going on in China are pretty well